All right, this is Elaine here, and this is actually my finished project. So you're seeing the reveal right at the beginning. I just wanted you to know that I took this inspiration from the new Crafter's Companion HSN that was on in June. And these are templates that you can download free from the internet and import them into Cricut Design Space. This is actually the Crafter's Companion one there on the screen. But just know that you may already have many of these things already at home in your stash for you to create these amazing things, especially if you've learned how to use your Cricut. So stay tuned and hopefully you can create projects just like this.
All right, these are some of the supplies that I am going to be using on my little treat boxes. I've got this wood textured stamp here, and this is just one of the items I've picked up from Tuesday morning. There's kind of like this textured here, like a crack, but I'm probably going to use this for the textures of the tile. I could also use this on the side of the house. There's this little stamp, it says sending thanks. You can cut this out. This was something really expensive. I probably picked this up at Joann's. That's what's listed on the back. This was, I think, free with one of my Crafter's Companion inspiration magazines, I believe. So you probably, oh, and here's a little butterfly die cut. These are just some, that I've got in my stash. Thanks. You probably already have things in your supplies to make some of these really cute boxes that you see advertised from them, and you might not even know it. Here's some, flowers pre-done that I just always keep to the side.
All right. Today I am downloading this project from my brain. It's so easy to just see something, advertised on TV or on a crafting channel, and you're like, oh my God, that's so cute. I just have to have it like now. Well, these are some inspiration. These are from Crafter's Companion, and these are some of their auto ships that are going to be even coming out later in the year. This was the one that was recently this little house box with the apple tree and the little fence. This was, I believe, in June, so you could get that. And I was looking at these, I was like, oh my goodness, these are so cute. I will tell you though that the one I like the best is this Halloween one. And I like the inspiration on the garden shed. I thought that was really cute. But I'm like, do I really need to pay all that money for those products? So I decided to see what I may have. And I found a lot of things in my craft stash I can use. So I'm going to close out most of these pictures. I'm just going to, I think I'll leave the Halloween one. I'm just going to hide these, and I'm using the little eyeball. This may be more of an advanced Cricut tutorial, but I will try to explain what I'm doing. And the way that I got these into my Cricut software is I just went over to the little upload over here and uploaded these as an image, and I'll probably delete them later. I just did that so you could see actually visually what I was talking about. So once you have started a new project in your Cricut Design Space, or I'm in the little canvas area, that's where you're actually going to design. You can either import a free template like you found on the internet, or you can look through your library to see what you already have. Now, I do not happen to subscribe to the Cricut subscription service, and I forget what they call it. I think it's Cricut Access. I pretty much just use whatever free things that they have, but you would be surprised as to what is here. I'm going to type in lunchbox, Lunchbox. And I was surprised to learn that I already had access right here. Look at that. Free. It's not one I've downloaded, but I already have access to a pre-designed template, and I don't have to start that from scratch. Isn't that cool? You've also got, well, this is a little pop-up box. I know I've purchased that, but you have access to all kinds of cool things in here. You can either pay for their monthly subscription, or you can choose to, you know, upload and design your own. For me personally, I choose to upload and design my own. I feel very comfortable with that. So let's get started. You can see all I had to do was import that image or click on it, and it automatically imports it for me. It will tell you the size, and it's displaying it in a couple different spots. You can see it's 4.8 wide, which is very, very tiny, by 3 and 11. Now that does not mean your finished size. That means actually from one edge to the other. So we want this box to be, you know, reasonably sized. So I'm looking at a square right here, and probably one of the hardest things to think about when you're doing this is we're designing flat. So we're designing in 2 dimensions, where when we actually put our boxes together, they're going to be in 3 dimensions. So let's say I look at this little square right here and I make it bigger. Let's say I want this to be 4 inches. So that would mean my box would be 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. So I would need a piece of paper that would be 16 inches, because we've got 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 4 is 12, plus another 4, that would be 16. Okay, do you see where that number came from? We know that Cricut will print up to 24 inches, but of course it needs to be like a solid sheet of paper. And most of us don't have paper laying around that is 24 inches. So what do we do? Well, looking at this template, this is actually pretty simple. You see this tab all the way over here to the left? We just need to make another tab right here. So we need to cut this or split this template in half and make 2 of them, and then just glue it together. Believe it or not, that's the same thing the die is going to do. If you buy a metal die cut, it's sized to make your paper approximately 8.5 by 11. There's, you know, sizes for the UK, you'll hear like A3, A4. Most of the time, your full-size dies are not going to be bigger than, let's say, 8 by 11, because that's sort of a standard sheet of paper, and everybody has a paper size that's relatively close to that. So we are going to be looking at this template, and I will show you how to split it in half. So you can cut 2 of them. You will see that when I click on it, all the way over here in our, let's see, let me get my rights and my lefts correct here. This would be on the right-hand column, all the way on this side. We have this little panel here, and you can see it says attach. You can see my other screenshots are hidden here because the little eyeball is turned off. I can turn them on and off. But this shows me all of my layers. So this is what's open that I am working with on my canvas, okay? And my design software is showing me that it's attached. Well, in order to split this in half, I have to detach it. So that's why I highlighted it. Do you see how the color changed there? And I'm going to click on this detach down here at the bottom. Okay? Now, my score lines, I'm just going to turn them on and off just so you can see what I'm talking about. My score lines are completely different from my box. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. For right now, we're just going to hide the score lines and we're going to focus on the box. this little caution triangle is actually telling me that it is too big for my machine to print as what I have. Do you see that? Images is too large. Well, we're in the middle of working on that right now. So how do we split something in half? Because remember, that's exactly what a die would do. A metal die would have two identical pieces that you're going to glue together basically. So I pulled a square from my shapes menu. It's right here, and I just pulled a square out. I'm going to click on my square. Make sure you've got it highlighted, and you're going to turn off this little lock box down here because I'm going to change the size of it. And I am just going to pull this down right there to the edge, okay? I'm not worried about this little tab up here right now because I know I can go back and kind of fix that. But what I'm going to do so we don't get anything screwed up is I'm going to take that red layer of that gable box and I'm going to duplicate it, okay? So now I have two of them. And I'm just going to hide this one, okay? So we've got our bottom box, all right, that's the red one, and we have a square laying on top of it. And I'm looking right here at this edge, if you're following where my mouse is. It's about right in the middle of the screen. I can tell that there is a little tiny bit of a gap there, but right here is where I'm going to be adding a tab anyway, so I'm kind of okay with that. So I'm going to select my square. I'm using my command button on my Mac. If you don't have a command button, it's the button immediately to the left of your space bar on your keyboard. You're going to push that button and it'll select more than one layer at a time. You're going to look all the way down to the bottom of that layers panel and look for something that says slice. We're going to slice it. Okay, and now we have some really, really weird looking shape. This is what's under it. This is this top, well, there we go. That is that top part. And then this is kind of that extra part. So if you had a cookie cutter and you were cutting like pie dough or cookie dough that you had rolled out on your cutting board, and imagine your square was your cookie cutter and you put it over the top of this, that's kind of what you did. You sliced into it, or you took a part out of the cookie, okay? This part here I'm going to keep for right now. I'll show you where I'm going in just a minute. And then this part is separate. That's fine. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at my screen right now. Let's see, this is attached over there. Where is this black piece? That black piece is over there. No problem. So I need to decide, I'm going to just hide this black one for right now, okay? I need to make a tab, or actually the easiest thing to do is, because we know this is actually identical to this piece over here, I'm probably just going to duplicate this one that's on the left. But before I do that, I want to get rid of this extra little ear tab that was on here. So I'm kind of going to do the same thing again. I'm going to choose a shape. I'm just going to choose a circle. Doesn't really matter. Now, even though my circle was over this, it wouldn't have cut it out anyways. I'm just moving it for the sake of, you seeing what I'm doing. So I'm going to take my circle, I'm going to lay it over the top of that just basically random piece that I don't need. And now, do you see how I'm clicking on two layers over here? I need to make sure that I have both of those two layers selected at the same time. Did you see that? They're both highlighted. Now it's going to give me the option to slice it again, okay? We know this piece is kind of like garbage or extra dough. I don't need it. This piece is kind of like garbage and extra dough. And then do you see how this piece came apart now? Isn't that cool? I don't need that piece anymore. All right, so we're going to throw that in the garbage. Now, just to make sure that I am thinking this through while I am sitting here and talking to you, I am noticing that this bottom looks different than this bottom. So if I just duplicate this piece that's on the right, it is going to be different than this piece on the left, now that I actually see that. So we are going to take this piece and we are going to add a tab to it, and we are going to add this tab back. So the fastest way to get that tab back is just to use my go back in history. Did you see that? I went up here to the top, and I'm just going to go back in history enough, there you go, to where I deleted that piece. I haven't done this ahead of time. I haven't prepped this ahead of time. I'm doing this live here. So, you know, there might be a few things that I need to adjust. So I've got that scooted up really, really close to this shape. I'm going to click this layer right here. I'm going to click that little tab, and now I want to weld those together. That means I want to make them permanent, or I want to take the piece of cookie dough and press it together and make it all one piece so I don't see a seam anymore. And do you see how that seam disappeared? That way I know it's all one piece. So we've got the bottom of the box here that's different, and all the other things that seem to be the best way to do it. And now all I need to do is add a tab over here, and I can kind of see where it belongs because it's got this little like jagged edge where I can see where I cut it off from the other side. So how do we add a tab? We can always just add a square tab if we chose, and we would just butt this right up against. We're not going to worry about the color. We don't care. I'm changing the size. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the tab about the exact same size as this other one. I'm just making it a little bit wider. I'm going to bring it over here. I could just add this. Do you see how I brought it over to it? Like they're kissing, they're hugging, they're touching. So I need to have this image and this image, and I want to weld it. Do you see how it became one image? So that's one way to do it, okay? I'm going to just show you the other way. So if I wanted to make this match exactly, see how this has a rounded corner? I would bring this shape up, turn off this little lockbox, and now I'm pulling it over it. You see how it's taller? And now I'm basically going to be taking an imprint of this shape. So I'm selecting the black layer, and I'm selecting that red layer, and now I want to slice it again. Don't worry, everything's going to be fine. There's my extra piece that I don't need. I can throw that one away. Here's my black one. Now, my red one is detached, but that's okay. We're just going to stick it right back. The machine really doesn't care if we cut it apart and stick it back together. It just doesn't. So I'm going to weld those back together. Whoops, I did something wrong. That happens. Just go back in history. I may have selected the wrong one. That's okay. So I want that one and that one, and I want to weld them. Well, that's weird. That happened again. Let's try that. Huh. Well, I've never had that happen before. Like I said, I am doing this live. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I don't know why it's putting it underneath it. Okay, so I want those two together, and I want to weld them. There we go. All right, it's happier now. Sometimes things happen. Can't always explain it. Okay, so now this is the exact same shape as the other one. It's a nice round little tab. So being as I had that little bit of weirdness happen, I'm going to make this just a little bit longer so it barely overlaps. I'm going to zoom it in so you can kind of see more what I'm talking about. Do you see how this black just barely overlaps on that side? That's what I'm talking about. Just because I had that weird issue just happen. So I'm going to select my black section. I'm going to select my red selection, and I'm going to weld it. Guess what we just did? We took an image and we cut it in half. So now it's pretty much just like your die that you would receive in the mail. You would get 2 images. Usually they would be the exact same one. So the flap on the bottom might be designed a little bit different than ours, but that's perfectly okay. I'm not going to worry about that because this is going to work. And then when you get this cut out of your Cricut, you're just going to glue these 2 together just like that. And now, boom, it's back to one piece. This tab that's all the way on the left-hand side, of course, is going to wrap and fold. Remember, we're 3 dimensions. So this fold is going to come all the way over here, all the way to the right side, and you're going to glue it together, okay? Easy peasy. Now, you're asking, what about our score lines? What happened to them? They all disappeared. Well, guess what? We're going to kind of score lines brought to the top. We need to figure out where they need to go. And what I have found is that you cannot cut your score lines the same way that I cut the box. But it's really, really easy to add score lines. I'm just going to kind of move these up. We can tell by looking at it, I need a score line to go from here to here, from here to here, to here, to here, to here, to here. I mean, come on, we're making squares. It's not that hard. So we're going to go into our shapes. We're going to pull out a score line. We're going to measure it. Let's see. We're going to measure it against this one. Let me see how tall this is. Oh, it's going up to the top. We can't use that as a measurement. Okay. We're going to just guesstimate. It's going to be right there. And it's going to be right there. So we're going to call that, let's call this 5 inches. Okay. So we're going to take this score line and put it right there, right in the crease, okay? Mine's actually a little long. So we're going to put that in the crease because obviously we know it needs to crease it there, right? We're going to duplicate it. We don't need to change the size, right? Because we already sized it. Now we know we need a crease right here, right? So we're going to put a score line right there. We're going to duplicate that again. I'm doing all my straight up and down ones right now because they're all the same size. Guess what? I need a score line right there. I am going to move this. Oops, wrong one. That happens. There we go. There's the big score lines. I'm going to move this just because I don't want to confuse you too much. Okay, so I've got a score line right here. We're going to bring that one over. We're going to duplicate that one again. Again, we do have to try to think in 3 dimensions as we're designing in 2 dimensions. That does get kind of funny. Okay, so I don't need a score line over there, right? Because that's the end of our paper. But I do need to make some score lines that are going to go this way, this way, this way, and this way. So I like to just click on the last one, duplicate it. Now up here, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And usually I just click somewhere else on the screen and it'll rotate it 90 degrees. And that should make this an exact square, or at least really, really close to it. I'm going to duplicate that again, bring it down here, line it up corner to corner. There we go. Duplicate it again. You could have just made one long score line. Also, that absolutely would work. Not a problem at all. It's just the way I'm laying it out because sometimes your box shape might be a little bit different, and I just want you to think about where, you know, all these score lines are going to go. I'm going to just move this one down just a smidge. Not too much. We're going to make a test cut before we actually put our fancy papers in there. All right, so one thing I'm going to do before I get much further, I'm going to try to move this out of the way. Okay, there you go. Well, it's still moved over. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got a box there, and then I have the folds here. So I have a total of 6 score lines, right? So I am going to try to just select those 6 score lines, and the easiest way for me to do that was to turn that layer off so I didn't have to see it. And I could tell this one right here, I think goes, yeah, this one goes to the bottom one. Okay, I'm going to hide that for right now. We're not changing the size, I'm just hiding it. Okay, so I have 6 separate lines right here. The easiest way for me to select them was to get rid of the big red box and then drag. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking right here. Okay, I have my mouse button down, I'm clicking and I'm dragging over the screen, and you can see it automatically selected those for me. I made that choice because I didn't want to get these other 2 score lines in. Remember, they're over on this other box. I just wanted to keep these. So I want to keep those together, so I attached it before I get too complicated. And now I'm going to bring my base back. Boom, there it is. Okay, so I believe I need another score line right there. So even though I have 6 score lines here, I still need 1 more. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate that. It doesn't matter that I picked an attached one, it'll still duplicate it. And I'm going to bring this line right there. That looks really, really good. Again, only for the sake of making this just a little bit easier, I'm going to hide this. Now, I did attach all those. I'm going to detach them just really, really quick. And I'm going to grab that extra one. Okay, now I have all of them together. Now I have my bottom box. Okay, so I have the score lines separate from the bottom box, but now I want to put them together. So I need to select the red box and the score lines, and now I'm going to attach those all together. So now that is one whole group. I could have grouped them, but group might not always save my score lines exactly as I laid them out. And I know attach will, because attach means that I put the line exactly where I want it on the piece of paper. So when I go to score it, that's where it's going to stay. And in the next menu, you will see it. So I'm just going to hide that so we don't have to look at it. I'm going to bring back the other big group of score lines. Remember these? And I can see by looking at it, they're really going to lay out exactly the same. We've got ours here to make a box, okay? We have a score line at the top, and we have, looks like just the score line here. I may not have needed one here because I think it just kind of folds over, but it's not going to hurt your box at all. Don't worry about it. Okay, so we're going to duplicate this, kind of the same thing again. We're going to rotate it 90 degrees. We're going to spin it around, and I know that sometimes this seems like a lot of work. It's really not, because you're only going to do this once. Once you have your template made, you can see how easy this is going to be for us to resize this in the future. And I only had to take the time once. All right, so instead of duplicating it, I just made that line bigger. Did you see how I did that? I just grabbed it, see, made it bigger, smaller right there. So I just pulled that line all the way over. I'm going to skip that score line for right now, just because. All right, and I'm just going to select all of this, just like that, drag it over so I have my score lines. See, it selected them even though they're not all in order for me, and it's going to attach them. And see, it moved them all together. Boom, boom, right there. Okay, so we're going to take that off, and we're going to find my box that I split. It's this one right here, and we're just going to look at it for just a second. And I am going to bring up this image again so we can just kind of look at it. All right, so we have a gable box. This one, yes, does have a fancy little decorative top. I'm going to get really complicated on you right now and kind of show you how you could do that. You would go into your images, You would choose, I know I have some that are called Fancy Edge. Look at that. I've got all kinds of fancy edges. Ooh, isn't this one cute? That one happens to be free. Why don't we try to use that one? This is definitely getting you into the advanced category here, but I want to show you how easy it is to make this change. Okay, so the decorative piece is on the bottom. All right, we're just going to rotate this 180 degrees. You can also just spin it around, but that's how I chose to do it. Okay, you're going to make that wider. You're going to kind of resize this. Now, you can either add this to the top and it'll just stick up higher, which is absolutely fine. Or you could kind of do that cut and slice technique and actually, you know, add it right about here. I think for the sake of our tutorial, I'm not going to do that and try to keep it a little bit easier for you. So I'm just going to line this up. And I'm actually going to make this a little smaller. Yeah, see, did you see how those little circles at the top got smaller? I don't want that. So I'm actually going to get a square and I'm going to slice this off. Pretty easy. I'm just going to bring this over. And I'm just guesstimating the amount of space between the bottom of that half circle and this, because it's going to go right there. And I just want to make sure I have about enough space. Okay, so I'm going to drag that over. I'm going to select those two and I'm going to slice it like a piece of pizza. Now all I need is this piece up here at the top. Okay, and now I can bring that down and unlock it. I can bring it over and down. Now that elliptical right in there is going to get a little bit smaller, but again, for the sake of this tutorial, I am going to try to keep this as simple as possible. All right, so we have an image here that I have attached. All right, I happen to know from working with this program, it's not going to let me slice that together. So I have to go in, click attach, click detach. Don't get too complicated on me. All right. So now I have to click, select my red box. I have to select my fanciness and I have to weld that together. And it's perfectly fine that it changed colors. One thing I am going to do is use my little back arrow and I'm going to make it just a little smaller, because do you see how it left that little tab out there? Again, really easy to fix this stuff. Don't let it get too complicated. Sometimes it is kind of hard to see this on this screen. Send to front. I'm going to try to zoom in a little more just so we can see that a little bit better. There it is. If you make a mistake, you just go back and fix it and try again. I'm going to click off. I think I've still got just a smidgen there. So I'm going to make it just a little smaller. And then I'm going to slide the whole thing over. All right, we're just going to have to keep that because we got to get on with this. All right, so I need to select just the red background. Now you have to do this in steps. You can't select your lines and everything and try to do it all at once. It's just not going to work. So I have to select my little red top, or my little white top, it's kind of their white, and my red one. Now I'm going to weld that together. Okay? Now do you see why we did those lines separate? They're all still there. It's always important to save like your weird cut and your score lines separately. Otherwise, these would all be separate and we'd have to go back and find them again. And that would be kind of a pain in the neck. So I'm just going to drag this layer underneath my score lines. And it's okay that it went under here. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So we know my score lines are here and my box is right here. I should have duplicated this top part before I did that. So to save me from doing extra work, I'm going to just copy this really quick before I stick it all together so we have it. And I'm going to bring this all the way down to the handle, I think right there. All right, so I'm going to just cut this before I attach, or yeah, slice it before I attach it, just so I have, there you go. Now I have another piece. So otherwise I would have had to open it all up. All right, so this red handle needs to get reattached to the base, so we're gonna weld those back together. Okay, boom, now we're where we started. So we need the red and we need the lines, and we're gonna attach those, okay? I got a little bit over there, but you're gonna take more time to do that in your, no matter that it's black or red. We can always change it, all right? Down here, now we're working on the one that's on the left-hand side. Remember, we had everything attached, and the step that we have to do is we have to detach it. Come on, mouse. There we go. I'm using a trackball mouse, and sometimes it likes to go to sleep. Okay, got to detach it. I'm going to slide this. Oh, it might not move everything for me. It's okay. We'll fix it. It'll be all right. I'll slide this down and over. That actually looks pretty good. I'm going to make it a smidgen smaller. I'm going to select that top and the red, and remember, we're going to weld it. Okay? It's okay that it turned black. It's really easy to turn it back. You just go up here and make it red. Okay? So we have a problem. All of these lines are separate. We want to be really careful that we don't move any of them right now. So I'm actually going to select all of those lines that are hidden back there, and I'm going to attach them just so I don't accidentally screw them around. Okay, so we want to line it up again before we attach it, otherwise it won't be in the right spot. Okay, so I'm just double checking my lines. There we go. Now, whoops, they moved on me. That can happen. I might be too close to the top. That's exactly what it is. I gotta move everything down. Move it down. It says, hey, silly, you're trying to do something off of the sheet of paper, and we can't do that. I'm just gonna line those up. I did it again. Okay, we are too tall to the top. It's all right. Just move it down. Again, I'm doing this as I'm doing it, as I'm designing it. I'm not re-showing you after I've done this 10 times. Okay, so I have the red layer, and I'm clicking on everything because now I have those score lines, and I'm going to attach it. The only thing we're missing is when it welded is that handle. So for some reason it just didn't go in there. That's pretty easy to do. We've just got to unattach everything. Detach. We're going to go, looks like I can't use this one because there's nothing in the middle, but there's no reason that I can't reuse this little piece. The machine doesn't care. The machine just sees it as a piece of paper or like a piece of dough that you're going to cut out. Oh my goodness, do I really want to unattach all this? My lines don't seem to be on top, so we're going to unattach that anyways. This, oops, wrong one. Let's get the right one here. Here it is. This one and this one, I'm just kind of staying in my head right now because I'm trying to do that a little bit fast. And I'm going to slice that, okay? Line that back up. I want this little piece. Where did this little piece go? There it is. Ah! All right, I'll just move that. We'll move that. We'll move this back. It does get kind of crazy sometimes. So I need to glue that or reattach that back. So we're going to weld that. and it's welded a little off. So all you would do would be to get another little square. I'm just showing you how to fix this really, really fast, rather than making a perfect tutorial, because you might wind up with all of these same issues. So basically I put a Band-Aid on it, I'm selecting it again, and I'm attaching it. Oh, actually I don't want to attach it. Let's go back. I want to weld it. Boom, I could tell I did the wrong thing because it had a little line around it. If I weld it correctly, there you go, I shouldn't see a line. Okay, I want to put my lines back on top of it. I don't want them on the bottom. Okay, so I just move that to the back. I'm going to realign this, make it nice and straight, trying not to zoom in too much and screw you all up. Okay, that looks pretty good. I've got my handle back, my little hole, and I'm going to attach that. All right, we're getting so close to being able to regularly do this. Okay, this is not attached to the score lines, correct? Or is it? No, it is not. Good. Okay, so this layer, I can bring up the little handles, and I'm going to have to eyeball this because I don't want to move it. They're going to be fairly close. That actually looks pretty good. So I'm looking at where this and this line up, and they're either right on. If you're not sure, oops, I hit the wrong thing. If you're not sure how straight they are, you can pull out another square and just kind of go like that. All right, the little tab is slightly up higher, and I've got mine right exactly even. So all I did was move this square down just a smidgen. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to take that and this back one, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to delete this inside. I'm going to delete this side, and look, I got a handle again. Okay, so move this backwards, send it all the way to the back. There we go. So now my score lines are on top of it. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to attach it. Okay, so now you know how to fix problems. Okay, so we've got the box top. I've showed you how to make a fancy box top. Now I'm going to show you how to play around with the size, okay? We really want to not do that until we get these two shapes pretty much identical, right? We're not going to group them together, but right now we know they're exactly the same size, okay? Looking at this template, the front of it is longer than the back, so it's not a square, it's more of a rectangle. So I clicked on those, and before we do anything, I'm going to go in and save it. We're going to call this lunchbox, UN lunchbox CC. That means Crafter's Companion, and I'm just going to put inspired, okay? P-I-R-E-D. You can label things however you want. I just know that that's the project I'm trying to make right now. Okay, so I've got that saved. So if I royally screw anything up, we're okay. So I've got both of those selected, and I haven't done anything to the individual size. I've kept it exactly the same. Now I selected them, and I turned off my little lock icon, okay? Because if I leave my lock icon on, it's going to keep this a square. It's called a ratio. That means if I pull this handle down, do you see that if it gets bigger, 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 it's still a square in the middle, okay, which is absolutely fine. Now, the other thing I want to think about is from this edge to this edge, and this edge to this edge really can't be bigger than 12 inches. I'm saying in general, or 11 inches on the Cricut, because that's your actual cutting space. So that's something I'm going to have to be kind of paying attention to, because it is almost at that size right now. Look at the top. This is pretty big because there is a lot of space right there. So we can't really get much taller, but we can definitely get wider. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to come up a little bit, and do you see how my shape is changing? I definitely got more of a rectangle. Okay, so I'm going to bring this down to about 11 because that's about as big as we can get. And I'm going to just leave it there for right now. So the 11 that I'm looking at is like right there. So 10, 11 is actually right there. It's actually still a little too tall. I'm going to slide this all the way over so I can look at my measurements. And this line right here in the middle, I can't bring out more than 11. So I've got my aspect ratio off. I'm going to lift this up to 11 and stretch this out to 11 and click off, and I'm going to see if it's happy. Okay, so I still have two separate ones, which is fine. But now they are different sizes. Let's see what happens if I make it. This I don't care about. It's just there. Hey, look at that. That will fit on one sheet of paper. So I'm going to try to push the limits just a little bit because I think I can get it about 1/2 inch bigger. So the way that I'm going to do that is, again, I'm not just changing the size of one. I have to change the size of the two of them exactly together, okay? So I just kind of lined them up. Oops, kind of lined them up there. I was going to drop and drag it, and I didn't want to do it. Okay, so I'm going to select those. So I have both of them selected. All right, now for this one, I'm just going to leave the aspect ratio. That's fine. And I'm just going to try to pull it out just a little bit more. I'm going to click make it and see if it's happy. Yep, I can still fit it on one piece of paper. Okay, I'm going to cut out this test print, and I will cut over to video of it cutting it out, and then we'll go to the overhead so you can actually see how the base box turned out, and we can discuss if we need any changes. Thanks for following along so far. Hang in there. We will get this project done, and you can make these amazing boxes too.
Okay, I've got my first cut off of my Cricut, and I always do a test cut before I use any kind of fancy paper. So it's kind of why these look really strange. I'm going to load my next sheet and pull them off and get going. And I can tell I forgot to put my score tool in there, but really it's not a problem because remember, everything's just kind of square. So I will try to remember to put my score tool in and just okay, I've got my Cricut cutting in the background. I know you're probably thinking, wow, that's an awful lot of work to be doing all of that to make treat boxes. Well, it absolutely is, but think about it. How much are you probably paying for the set of dies? And you really only get one size box. If you take the time to do it on the Cricut, you can have whatever size box you want. This is one that I had made probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. And you can tell the template is much smaller. And what I do is I write on my sheets or my boxes. This one I actually can print on or cut on 8.5 by 11, and it takes 2 sheets of it. So I know that this box is automatically sized for that. And it's all in my Cricut machine. So if I want a box of a different size, I can make this one bigger. I can make this one smaller. And I can, of course, change any of these decorative details. If I wanted a window here, I could, you know, do the little cut and slice. And I could have a window on my box. So I think it's absolutely worth the time to learn how to use Cricut Design Space and design your own things. If you forget to put your scoring blade in like I did, I'm just laying this out on the scoreboard, and it's really easy to line these up. I'm just picking a line and just going straight And this is all going to be pretty simple right here to keep all these lines lined up. I can hear my Cricut has stopped cutting. I'm going to line this one up down here and just go over like that and over like that. And see, this is the tab that's going to get folded over. And let me pull the other one off. I did accidentally rip that as I was pulling my sheet off. That happens too. We're never always perfect. So here's my second one. It is easier if you try to pull it off. It feels kind of weird, pull it off backwards. This one's not too complicated. I'm just pulling this random stuff off. You know, you can always use your spatulas or whatever. This one does have the score mark on it. Hopefully, yeah, there you go. You can see it. I did put the score blade in. And this is, I would say this is a light to medium weight cardstock that I made this sample box out of. So, there's my other piece. So I'm just going to fold these score lines really quick. Won't take very long. We're going to glue it up. This actually looks like a fairly decent sized box. And remember, we made this to fit a full 12 by 12 sheet of paper. So if we took this decorative detail off, I could probably get a smidgen bigger box, and I might even be able to make these tabs just a little smaller, and that would make my box wider. To see all the really cool changes you can do. Where is my glue? There it is. If you want to get decorative, you can glue your tabs on the outside of your box, meaning, you know, put it there. I would say, you know, always try to glue your tabs on your inside of your box just so you don't have to see them. I'm going to line this up just like that. Make sure you can see that on the camera. Oops. I am using wet glue. I prefer wet glue. Some people really like tape. You're going to use, you know, whatever you want, whatever you're really comfortable with. But this stuff does dry really, really fast. See how our box is coming together? So you got to design in 2 dimensions and then think about how it's going to come together in your 3 dimensions. I'm just going to put some glue here. Now, depending on what you're actually putting in this, I would glue your bottom flaps because it's going to add some strength. You could also put a square rectangle in there to just give it more support. I'll line these up here. There we go. Have it just a little pressed now. Nice little score. We are almost done here. So good thing I didn't just duplicate the box. So this is going to go in here and this is going to go in there. And this will happen sometimes. Another great tip, because we changed the aspect ratio, and this is why we do a test cut. Do you see how our bottom is not really lining up? I'm going to want to go in and make these flaps longer, or if I didn't want to do that, I would just do a square and just glue a square on the bottom. That would be probably the easiest way to do it, is just glue a big giant square. And if you wanted to make it sturdier, you would glue that square in the bottom also, and that would give you a lot more strength. Okay, so let's see how the top folds up. And again, that's why you want to make a test template. So this is just going to get folded back like this. These tabs, you kind of squish this here in the middle, and these tabs go right in here. Oh, come on, tabs. There you go. So those tabs go right in there. And these tabs go right in there. And I can see that that's giving me a smidgen of grief. So we might not want to try to alter our box too much, just because it did mess with the sides just a little bit. So maybe instead of stretching it, we're going to keep it in the aspect ratio of which it was designed. But I still think that is super cute for our first test. And again, this was a treat box that I had done previous. And it's all about the embellishments. So in the second part of the video, I'm going to go back in, make a couple of changes to my box, and then show you where to find all the embellishments in your Cricut Design Space. And then I will actually make some of the boxes that I want to create. All right, see you in the next video.